Hey everyone, welcome to the Soul Rehab Project. This is Sarah Saxby, and this is the podcast where we talk about lies. We talk about all the lies we have told ourselves, the way we've betrayed ourselves, and the ways we have been lied to and betrayed, personally and globally. And today I want to talk about going through the darkness. So we do a lot to avoid going through the dark times, right? There's a lot of ways in our world to distract ourselves. We can pay for a lot of things to keep our minds off of actually moving forward into the darkness so we can rebuild on truth. And really, the only way that we're at this stage of the game, so where we are today and the way things have changed in our world and at the rate that lies and corruption are being exposed, we don't have the option to keep pushing it down. There are people, I spoke in my last podcast, there are people that are going to keep pushing harder and harder into what I call the illusion. So I'm going to talk about that. But it's going to get harder and harder to do that. It's going to be harder and harder to keep pretending, to keep lying to ourselves, and to keep trying to distract ourselves with more and more illusions and surface level things. And so the way that I'm looking at this is that we were born into an illusion, okay? And we're made to believe, and I can speak from being in the United States perspective, that we're made to believe that we're free. And if you think about it, even if you're in prison, you have freedoms, right? There are some freedoms in prison, from what I've heard, right? You get to go outside, you get to read books, whatever, go watch TV. I don't know. But there are some freedoms within the prison. And that is how I look at our lives. We do have some freedoms, but it's only the freedoms that were listed on the menu when we were born, right? When we were born, we were handed a menu and you get to choose from those options. So that's freedom, but that's not liberation. We're not made to be sovereign and liberated. We're given the illusion of freedom because we have some choices, but we only have a certain amount of choices. Like, you're supposed to get married and buy a house and have kids and go to school and and be in debt. And, there's these things that, yeah, I chose to be married. Well, that's because it was on the menu, but what else is there outside of that, right? And so the majority of us, we choose from this menu. We think we're free. We're doing all of these things. And those choices really aren't for us, but we believe that's all there is. So we choose them because it was on the list, but it doesn't really fit who we are or who we are here to become, or what we're here to do. But you're like, well, it was my only option. So we're wondering why we feel this disconnect in our life, right? I did everything I was supposed to do. I did everything on the list. Why do I still feel empty inside? Why do I still feel a great disconnect? I have a husband, I have kids, I have a dog, I have a house, I go on vacations. Why is there still emptiness? Why am I still crying? Why do I still feel like I don't know who I am? That's because you were not shown that as an option. You were just given your list to choose from, your menu. So we have to fit into this mold, and it doesn't feel right, and we're confused. And so we buy more things, we buy more books, we buy more workshops, we take classes, we get therapy, we do, we go on walks, we get acupuncture, whatever. We're doing all of these things. And like I always say, do the things that make you feel good, right? But the one thing that we never do is allow ourselves to face the darkness. We do everything to avoid whatever the darkness is, and the darkness is where the truth lies. It's when we finally admit that we have been pretending all our lives to fit within the menu, within the mold. And a lot of times, quite often, we get involved with people who will pretend along with us. Think about that, right? So you're, as an individual, you're pretending. What I mean by that is you pretend to like people because you don't want to be alone. So you might not like the people around you, but you play the game. Hi, how are you? I'm good. You're not good, but you say that anyway. So you're lying there too. You go into work and there are people that you clearly don't like, but you have to play the game. So you're like, oh, hi. Or, someone got an award at work and it was all bullshit, but you're like, congratulations. You're lying again. So you're pretending all the time. All the time. And then you meet a partner, you meet someone who is going to pretend right along with you because you don't want to be around people that aren't pretending. It's like we make this agreement. We sign an invisible agreement when we're born, and we all sign it and we say, well, I'm going to go along with your illusion. You're going to go along with mine, and we won't touch the darkness together. Because who wants to be around someone that's pulling out their bullshit? You don't want to be around those people. My son was just telling me that he's going through some things, and he was just saying, my friends agree with me in this argument that he's in. And I said, well, of course they agree with you. They're your friends. What did you tell them? You know what I mean? I mean, that's like an obvious example, but you surround yourself with people who go along with your illusion, with your lie. I'm going to be okay with your lie. You're going to be okay with mine. And we're going to keep pretending. Do you see what I'm saying? So when someone comes up that sort of bucks your system, you don't like that. You're like, you're not going along with my lie. You're calling me out on it. I don't like that. I don't like that person, right? But the lie, the way that we're set up now, the way that the world has changed, and all of these things are collapsing. All the things that were built on lies are collapsing. Some more quicker than others, but it's happening within our lives. But that's why we're scrambling for more distraction. We're scrambling, we're posting more, and we're trying to go on more vacations, and we're drinking more, and all of these things because the lie is coming up. So you may have your own lies, and your partner has their lies, and together you support each other in your lies because you don't want to upset anything. So every time that you stay quiet, it feeds that illusion. It feeds the pretending that you've been doing. And it becomes a whole family thing. It becomes a whole nation, a whole world. We all just want to keep the pretending going because it's easier. So there's this saying, and I know Mark Twain gets credit for it. I guess it depends on who you ask. I've heard it's not necessarily Mark Twain, but I don't know, whatever. But it's easier to fool people than to convince them that they've been fooled. And that's such an important statement for me right now, because it's really easy if you look at all the ways that we've been fooled in our lives. It's easy to fool people, but you can't convince them that they've been fooled. Nobody wants to admit that they've been fooled. So, and I told this story in my last podcast, but it's kind of fitting. When I was growing up, I had a sibling that was supported by my parents. So he received every single car he ever had was given to him by my parents until they died. He lived in their home for free until they died. And I don't know. I was probably, I don't know, maybe in my 20s or 30s. And I was talking to my dad and we were talking about my sibling. And I said, how much money must he have? And my dad was kind of just looking at me, and I'm thinking to myself, he's never paid rent. He's never bought a car. You must have I go, he's probably sitting on a gold mine. And my dad said, don't say that. Don't say that. I don't want to hear that. And it's like, it was easier for my dad to just continue to be fooled than to admit he had been fooled. So it was like, I just want to keep the blinders on because life is so much easier when I'm blind. But when people start showing you that you have been blind and you've been missing things, you don't like it because it starts to upset your world. And then it forces you to go through the darkness and start to admit to where you've been lying. So you ever notice how you avoid people like that? And most people just want to go along with the illusion. They want to continue to pretend. Because when you find out that you are in an illusion and you've been fooled, you don't like it because then you're held accountable. You're like, damn it, now I have to do something about it. And I never wanted to do anything about it. And you have a partner that you married or that you're living with, and they agreed also to never have to deal with it. Together, you agreed, we're just never going to talk about this. Individually, you have things you're never talking about. And together, you found somebody that's going to go along with your lie and you're going along with theirs. But if you notice, you can't do that anymore. It's coming up. The lies they keep coming up and people keep pushing them down, right? No, not today, not now. And then they come up again. And you're like, I'm just going to drink a little bit more, or let's just go on vacation, or let's take a class or read a book, all these things, because I don't want to deal with that lie. No, not yet. But it keeps coming up. Years ago, it just stayed down there because we were okay with the illusion. It wasn't being forced up to be worked on. But people still want to avoid it. But the only way out today is going through the darkness. I know nobody wants to hear that, but I'm living proof because I personally couldn't live the way I was living anymore. I couldn't go into a job where literally everyone is lying to be there every day. Everyone is telling themselves a lie to be there. Just when you think you're not lying to yourself, I assure you, you are lying to yourself. You may be lying in your relationship. It's a dead relationship, right? It's empty. It's hollow. You're like, well, I love the person. Well, that's because you've known them for 20 years. You love them because you're used to them. You love them because you were told, you signed an agreement to be with them forever. So yeah, I love them. Well, are you in love? Or are you just used to that person? Is it someone that can share the burden of life with you? Because if not, you're just lying to yourself there too. But as a group, as society, as humanity, it's like we've all agreed, let's just keep it surface level and we'll be fine. I'm not being true to who I am. But if we all agree to the illusion, if we all agree to just keep being fooled, then we'll be fine. But we're not fine anymore. So if you're wondering why it is you just cannot feel relaxed or whole or at peace or fulfilled or inspired or energized, think of all the places where you are lying. And just when you tell yourself, no, I'm not Yes, you are. Yes, you are. So the antidote, I want to make sure that I leave people with antidotes when I say things, because I know a lot of times I feel like I've been saying stuff and not really giving people solutions. And I wrote some things down, but so if you think about, I've been very open about my narcissistic relationship. So how do you, instead of disrupting your entire world right away, think about like a parasite, which is a narcissist basically, right? They're parasites. They can't survive without a host body. So what do you do biologically if you're trying to kill the parasite, the pathogen, whatever, right? You stop feeding it. So how do we feed our pretending? How do we continually feed the illusion? And there's ways that we do this. So if we stop feeding it, things will start to change. So it doesn't have to be such a black and white thing. The change can be more gradual. So it's not so shocking, but the longer you wait, the more shocking it's going to be. Okay. So we feed the illusion. And yeah, I need y'all to be real honest here, because nobody wants to be freaking honest, because we still want to, we still want to pretend. But when we post for validation, so when you go to post anything, ask yourself, why am I posting this? Who's this for? And you're always going to come up with some bullshit where it's going to tell you, you can post whatever you want. You're posting just to share joy. I'm going to post a fun picture of myself because I just want people to be happy. Are you sure? Are you sure? If you couldn't lie to yourself, is that the real reason you're posting? Because you want a picture of yourself. You just want to share joy. You want to inspire people. If you keep doing that and you're not honest with yourself, you're feeding the illusion. You're going to keep feeding your pretending, your fake life. Every time you agree to pretend, right? So say, I don't know, you have a friend that is in a horrible relationship, but you want to keep your friendship and all the friends that are related to this friendship and everything else. So you just go along with it. They're in a horrible relationship, but you kind of just ignore it because you're like, well, I don't want anyone to not like me. I still want to be in this group. It's important. So you pretend that it's okay, that their relationship is okay. Or maybe, I mentioned this before, like somebody gets an award and they didn't really deserve an award, but it's politics, right? So you're at work and somebody gets an award and you're going, what the fuck? But you still go and congratulate them. You're like, oh my God. You're feeding your fake life. You're not being honest. And why is that? Well, I don't want that person to be mad at me. I don't want to look like a jerk. Everyone else is congratulating them. That's because everyone else is in the illusion. Everyone else is playing the game. They know, most of them know anyway, that it's bullshit, but everyone has agreed to play the game together. Once someone gets out of that, they're upsetting the agreement. People are like, we got to get them out of here, right? That's why I got fired, right? I refuse to play in the illusion. I refuse to play the game anymore. So what happens? One of two things has to happen. They get rid of me, or they have to look at where they're lying, where they're abusing, where the problem is. And they weren't going to do that. They weren't ready. Their illusion, I threatened their illusion. So they got rid of me because they weren't ready to face the abuse, where they're being abusive, where they're lying every day, where they're being fake. So you just get rid of that person. And that's why people want to keep playing the game, because they don't want anyone to get rid of them, right? So you stay quiet. So just how are you? And, oh, I'm good. How are you? That whole thing. Are you good? What if you're not? But you're lying. I know it seems minuscule, but it's like, it's relevant. It's relevant. And I know you're like, well, if you're just in passing, you're supposed to just tell people your whole story that's going on right now. Well, no, I understand that. I'm just saying in general, most people that say, how are you, don't give a shit how you are anyway. And you're going to, in response, you're going to lie about how good you are. So it's just a whole bag of lies. The whole how are you bullshit. Like scrolling online and comparing yourself to others, right? So you see people that are posting how wonderful things are. And so you look at those things and you're like, well, I don't feel wonderful. So you're going to go out and try to capture the greatest thing that you do all day, or you're going to look at something that your kid's doing and you're like, I'm going to post, because you're measuring yourself. Every time you measure yourself, you're feeding the illusion, you're feeding your fake life. And you're looking at something, you're looking at someone that's most likely empty as well. They're selling you a feeling that they don't have themselves. And you're buying into it and you're measuring yourself against it. And you feel less than. And so you got to go find a quick hit because you feel so empty. Here's a big one. Silencing your own truth. That's how you feed the illusion. That's how you feed your fake life, right? So not having a conversation with someone that you need to confront, or really wanting something for your life, but not admitting that it's what you want, or being in a relationship that is not supportive and pretending that it is. Wherever you're not speaking up and admitting your truth, it's bubbling up and you're pushing it down. You're going to continue to push it down because you're like, no, I'm not ready to face this, but it's coming out. Hear me telling you, it's coming out. But we keep trying to find more ways to push it back down. The only way through is through the darkness. And then the last thing I wrote down is performing identity. So where we have no idea who we really are, we're literally walking around these empty vessels and we're attaching ourselves to roles all the time, right? And I'm most of the people that I know are either empty nesters or close to being empty nesters. And you played the role of mom or dad, for so long. Now who am I? Right? So, well, now I'm going to focus on work. Now I'm going to be a worker. Right? So it's always, we're attaching ourselves to these roles. But every time we do that, every time we forget who we are, we don't even know who we are. That's a whole nother podcast. But it's a good idea. I could talk about that. But every time we just attach ourselves to a role, we're pretending again. We're pretending. And everyone wants to keep the global pretending, because then no one has to really touch what they don't want to touch. So I'm just going to take more medication, and I'm going to drink more, and I'm going to shop more, and I'm going to vacation more, because that darkness that I agreed to always keep down, and my partner agreed to keep it down, and my friends, and we're all together, a community of lying and being fake, because nobody wants to touch the darkness, but it's coming out. So every time you feed it, every time you do those things that I just said, you're feeding the pretending, you're keeping the darkness down. That's going to become stronger than anything you can possibly do to keep it down. So when you stop feeding it by those ways that I was talking about, it's going to eventually come up so you can deal with it in a way that you're going to want to deal with it, rather than it just exploding in your face. So let me know what you guys think. Are you ready to face where you're pretending? Are you ready to go through the darkness to rebuild on everything that is true? Because you're going to have to. And I'm speaking to you with the fire all around me. So shoot me an email, Sarah with an H, at strategiesforhappiness.com. If you head over to Strategies for Happiness, you can book me for a speaking engagement. You can set up a 90-minute truth session with me. That's it's very deep. It's very moving, um, even for me. And, or if you just have any questions or have any podcast ideas or things you want me to talk about, um, I look forward to hearing from you guys. So let's do this together. Talk to you guys soon.